Welcome to the SOAR Insight Lab. I'm your host, Steve Cardon, Associate Project Manager with SOAR LLC, where we specialize in project management and change management training and consulting. Here at the Insight Lab, we believe there's a big difference between how project and change management are taught and how they actually get done in the real world. Each episode, we sit down with seasoned project management and change management professionals to have real, honest conversations about what it looks like in practice, the wins, the lessons learned, and the moments where the textbook goes right out the window. Whether you're studying for your PMP, your CAPM, or your CCMP, or you're a seasoned practitioner looking for a fresh perspective, this is your space to hear from people who've been in the trenches and lived to tell the story. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the SOAR Insight Lab. I'm joined today by Joanne Gallagher. Now, Joanne, you've got the PMP, you've got the CCMP, the dual threat of project and change management. We're talking about stakeholder management today. And, people often say projects are about tasks, but you've always told me they're actually about people. Why is that?
Well, first, Steve, thank you very much for having me on your podcast today. That's a very hard lesson to learn because a Gantt chart never complained about a new software rollout. It's the people that do that. And not managing your stakeholder needs and expectations is one of the biggest reasons that projects fail. And the data backs this up. PMI research shows that organizations waste $122 million for every $1 billion spent on projects. And it's stakeholder misalignment. That's one of the biggest culprits.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about soft skills being nice to have. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. So if your people aren't on board, then really what are we working with?
That's exactly right. Let me give you an easy example. You can build a beautiful house. You can build it on time, on budget, exactly to specifications. And then the family shows up and says, we never wanted to move in. So your project technically succeeded and completely failed at the same time.
Ooh, that one stings. Let's dig into how you actually make sure people want to move in.
Right.
But before we dive in, here's some context. And if you're studying for your CAPM or PMP, pay attention because this will show up on the exam. In the former PMBOK guide, I know the PMBOK is changing now, but stakeholder management is chapter 13, the last of the 10 knowledge areas. And, PMI didn't give it its own chapter until fifth edition, which says a lot about how much our thinking has changed over the years. So, what is a stakeholder? Well, simply put, anyone who might affect the project, be affected by it, or even just think they're affected by it. And stakeholder management is really about understanding who those people are and making sure their expectations are handled throughout the project.
Mhm.
Okay, now, Joanne, in school, we're taught to start with the stakeholder registry, name, title, power, interest, all of that. But is that actually enough to run a real project?
I wouldn't worry too much about it clinically. You use it as your framework and then engage your logic and your intuition. If you're working with the people who will be impacted by the work that you're doing, whether it's a large technology transformation or a process change, you need to consider what their role is and the changes associated with that. So once I know who will be impacted and how they'll be impacted, then I'm able to make a plan to make sure they know exactly what I'm doing and when. And that's what I love about the ACMP standard, the framework that underpins the CCMP certification. It's completely aligned with this thinking. The first of the five process areas is evaluate change impact and organizational readiness. And right there in the first phase, you're identifying your key stakeholders and determining who will be affected by the change. It doesn't wait. Stakeholder identification is foundational, and then it carries its way all the way through the framework.
Okay, so hold on. I want to slow down here because I think this is where a lot of new project managers get lost. When you say think about how they'll be impacted, what does that actually look like in practice? Where do you even start?
That's a good question. Let me make it real for you. So let's take a child welfare system implementation, something I've actually worked on in my past. At first, you might think, Okay, well, the caseworkers are my primary stakeholders. But then you start mapping it out, and you've got the kids and you've got the families who are directly impacted by what you're doing. You've got the caseworkers, but you also have the therapists, and then you have the service providers working with the families. Then you've got the courts, you've got guardian ad litems, and you have different agencies feeding data into the system. That's a pretty long list, and you cannot manage them all in the same way. So, what we do is we segment them. Some stakeholders just need awareness to keep them informed and make sure that they're not blindsided. And others need limited input to check in, to give you some feedback. But then there's the group that you need to actively collaborate and coordinate with. Those whose buy in is going to be make it or break it for your project. And just by doing this exercise, just today and just right now, I've identified three distinct efforts with different communication and engagement strategies. That's your stakeholder management plan starting to take shape.
So it's not one size fits all. You're building lanes for different groups.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. And the goal is to be intentional without getting so buried in stakeholder management that you've stopped your project from moving. It's a very delicate balance.
So let's pivot to the change management side of your brain now. For the seasoned project managers out there, we've all dealt with the difficult stakeholder, the one who says no to practically everything or misses every meeting. From a change management perspective, is that person actually difficult or is something else going on?
Most people, Steve, are not naturally difficult. They're threatened in most cases. Change creates a sense of loss, right? Loss of status, loss of routine, or maybe even just the fear of looking incompetent using a new tool. When someone is resisting, they're usually protecting themselves against something. And honestly, I was on a podcast at FSU just a couple of weeks ago where we went down a whole rabbit hole on exactly this issue, resistance and AI. You know, our entire workforce feels threatened right now, but I'll tell you, the people who do our kind of work, Steve, project managers and change managers, these people have the exact right critical thinking skills and human centered approach that's exactly going to be highest demand as AI evolves. Those are the frameworks that we teach in SOAR. They're grounded in globally recognized standards.
So it's really a big mindset shift. Instead of my getting frustrated as a project manager that there is resistance, I really should be asking, what is it that they may be afraid of losing?
Yeah, that's right because resistance is typically rooted in fear. And as a change manager, you're helping remove that resistance and you're managing what's in it for me, the benefits of the new way of doing business for that specific stakeholder group. If you can't answer that, you haven't finished your stakeholder management plan.
Sounds like you're saying that we need to be part strategist and part therapist.
I guess so. Yes, I guess so. If you're not listening to the why behind the no, you're really hitting a brick wall over and over again.
Yeah. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's talk about the big bosses, okay? Managing up is an art form. How do you keep an executive engaged without oversaturating them with details that they really don't care about?
That's a really good question. High level stakeholders hate surprises. So my rule always is no surprises, only solutions. Just go to them don't just go to them with a problem. Go to them with three options and a recommendation. Respect their time by speaking in terms of risk and value. They don't need to know all the technical how. They need to know the business why and drop that jargon. It's not impressive when a leader is tight on time and needs to make a vital decision and you're talking in jargon.
Right. So keep the how for the team and the why for the C suite.
That's precisely right. If you're droning on about API integration details, you probably have already lost your window of opportunity there.
Yeah. Okay. So, Joanne, this has been great. And if you could give our listeners one actionable tip to use in their next stakeholder meeting, what would it be?
I guess I would ask one simple question. What does success look like for you on this project? And what does it look like for your stakeholder groups? That's the start of a good stakeholder management plan. Your job, both as the change and project manager, is to identify that and build your plan around it.
I like it. Simple but powerful. Joanne Gallagher, thank you for joining us in the SOAR Insight Lab. And to our listeners, get out there, stop managing spreadsheets, and start engaging people.
Thank you for having me again, Steve.
You bet. If today's conversation has you thinking about leveling up your project or change management professional training, SOAR offers several live instructor-led professional training programs. With both the PMI authorized training partner and ACMP qualified education provider status, SOAR is one of a select few professional training programs in the country recognized by these organizations, holding credentials as well as practicing in these areas. Either way, you are in good hands, so head over to www.soar.llc to see the current training schedule and grab your spot.